excerpt was taken from a full and bloom interview with guitarist Chris Sheridan. If you'd like to be notified as new excerpts from this interview are uploaded, hit the subscribe button and click the bell. I saw that 5 years ago or something, there was a Sweet Savage reunion.
We did that. Wow, it was 10 years ago.
Maybe. Oh, shit.
Yeah, wow. Okay, 11. Yeah, it was like the 20th anniversary, or maybe 25th of when we first played in '84. It would have been July '84 in Dallas at Matley's Phase 2.
Oh, yeah, I thought there was like a basement reunion thing where a couple of...
Well, there was an association with the basement. It was at it was some theater, kind of almost downtown Dallas.
Okay. And Lord Tracy played as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to see Terry and those guys. And that's funny because that goes way back. You know, Lightning and Pantera were the first two bands I saw when I moved to Texas in early '84.
And that's where Barney comes from, right? Lightning?
Yeah, well, he was in Lightning, yeah. And Rocky Athas, great guitar player. Well, that's what happened when I first moved to Texas. We'd already been down there in Laine, because our dad had moved there a few years before that, and we had both gone down to visit. And he liked the music scene, so he moved there.
That was
when
Houston,
I got to town,
right?
They were like, you know, there's two guitar players you got to watch out for. There's Rocky Athas from Lightning, and there's this other kid from like Fort Worth or someplace, and he's really good, but you know, he's just a kid. And I'm like, okay. So I saw Rocky and Lightning at Matley's, and it's like, Barney's such a great bass player, and that whole thing. But that was a little more Jeff Beck. I wasn't, I didn't feel like there was any competition there. And then some rainy night on a weeknight, I was underage. Everybody was underage, and there's band Pantera, and the guitar player, he just knew right away, like, wow, that guy's got it. He's got that extra, you can't put your finger on it, but you know it when you see it. I've only seen that with, maybe a dozen guitar players, including Eddie Van Halen, like some top names. So right away, and then I said, well, there's no way, there's no competition. I'm basically fucked. But but it wasn't a competition anyway. So, but he had fun back then.
You're based out of Houston first, right?
No, Dallas. First show was at Matley's right there in Skillman or wherever that was, Northwest Highway.
Yeah. Wow. The clubs predate me a little bit. I was more, when the basement kind of came around. But I mean, of course, I had your record before that, but I was still a kid. But so how about we just start with how Sweet Savage was formed? Can you give me...
I'd have to go all the way back to, if you want, I'll have to start from the beginning, go back to high school. Of course, I grew up with my brother Laine, and, we played piano lessons as kids, and then we were in marching band in high school. Laine was a percussionist, and I played the trumpet. So, performing live music, we were already doing that. And then we started playing guitars in high school, and Joey sang. He could sing some AC/DC stuff. I knew Joey before. We grew up in a small town in Ohio, and I knew Joey before we even played instruments. I was like 12, and he was like 15, and we would skateboard and listen to Ted Nugent and all this stuff and AC/DC. And he'd always sing along like, like with Bon Scott, and it was like, wow, kind of has a voice. And Laine and Joey started playing in a band together in high school. They'd play after the football games, and it was a lot of fun. I would like help them out because when you're 16, the last thing you want to do is hang out with a 14-year-old me. So, but it goes all the way back to that. Everybody moved to Columbus, Ohio. It's, bigger city. There was a good music scene there afterwards. Everybody played in different bands. And Laine took off to Texas, and Joey's, getting better and better in Columbus, and I'm in Columbus. And I kept telling Laine, I said, man, let's get a band together. Let's do something. And, and he was like, well, who do we get to sing? And I'm like, what about Joe? And he was like, Joey from high school? And I'm like, yeah, he's been playing at bars. He's really kicking ass. He's got something going. So Laine came up to visit, like in '83. Joey was playing at the Alrosa Villa, place that we always used to go to in Columbus, infamous place. Of course, it got turned tragic, at some point.
Where Darrell got shot, right?
Yeah. All the irony. Yeah, because, we can pause on the Alrosa if you want. I had been going there on a fake ID since I was 17. It was just the place to go. The Gods, played there. Rosie, a lot of bands played there. It was really the place to play. And when we had the band going in Texas in the 80s, we had told the booking agent about it. Hey, man, book us in Columbus. We can go back there and we can pack that place. And he did. And he told the other bands about it, like Stiff and Lillian Axe and Pantera and some other bands, like, oh yeah. And so they started booking them there, like in the 80s and the 90s. So we kind of, in some way, opened the door to the Alrosa Villa to most of the Texas-based bands. And then Darrell could have been shot on stage in any bar, in any country, city in the world, and it would have been equally as tragic and just a terrible loss. But the fact that it was Al Rosa was just that level of bizarreness that maybe only a handful of people will get, but we get it. You know?
Right. Yeah. Wow.
So anyway, back to the El Rosa in 1983. Laine comes up and he brings a smoking hot stripper girlfriend from Dallas, and I'd never seen a girl like that before. You know, in Rio, you know, she's tan, blonde, and all this stuff. And we go out and watch Joey at the El Rosa, and Laine was like, "Damn, he's come a long way." And I said, "Yeah." And it was that night we decided, okay, let's do it. Laine went back to Texas. I moved in a couple months, and Joey moved down a couple months later, and that's how we got it going. So we had all sort of played together. Even by '84, we had already been jamming or playing or doing something for 5 years already. So there was a core there that so when the band started, we were already running. We had a real head start. Yeah, and then we got, through a friend, Timmy, this girl, introduced us to Randy. And then there was this band, Black Star. And they were kind of Motley Crue covers, and they were playing at Matley's. This is like '84. We sat in with them. People went nuts, and then we ended up stealing their guitar player, Michael Scott, and their light man. And we did our first gig in, July '84 at Matley's, and I think we broke a attendance record that first weekend. So we really kind of started off running and never looked back.
That's incredible. It was like, I mean, the very first week you break the record?
Well, there was a lot of hype because by then we had been going out all the time. All the strippers knew us, and we were sitting in with bands. People hadn't seen anybody like Joey before because he's such a cut up, and, you know, he's just so much fun to be around. It was new, and there was just a lot of buzz even before the first gig. Yeah, that was it.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think they were kind of hungry for a new band or something.
Right. Well, it always stood out. Even since we did that interview way back, I've thought of it through the years for whatever reason, but you had told me that you guys wanted all the members to be like David Lee Roth level, or something to that effect. It was like you didn't...
Yeah, everybody's a front man. No side, no back line. Everybody had a spotlight. It was absolutely, we thought of that consciously, you know.
And so at first it's a dual guitar thing. You have two guitar players.
Yeah, I think I was 19 by then. And I was a good solid player, and I could write a little bit, and really consistent as a rhythm player. My tone, and I wasn't quite there as like a lead player, but we would either do double leads on songs that called for it. And then I had a couple of songs where I would play, but mainly Michael, and then Michael Scott. And then shortly after, maybe 6 months after that, we got to switch lead guitar players. Had this guy, Lance Sprotz, who he was kind of like a Randy Rhoads kind of guy, and really good player. Still, I was, that was a dominant lead player, and I was mostly the rhythm, dual leads when it called for it, but otherwise, yeah, I was more of the rhythm player for about the first, not quite a year, maybe first 8 or 9 months. And what happened was, just to play out the guitar player thing, we went to LA the first time in early '85. It was like February or March '85. We played in Phoenix on the way there for a couple weeks and rehearsed for about another week, and went to LA and played some gigs, played the Troubadour, Waters Club. And for some reason, when we got back, I guess Lance wasn't into it anymore because it's, it was kind of weird being on the road and stuff. And he just left, and we were just like, what do we do? And I said, you know what, just give me a shot being the only guitar player. And it seemed to work. And baptism by fire, just played the next gig with just me. We filled in the holes. And of course, we couldn't do the double lead songs. And by then we were doing more originals. So they were geared towards a single guitar player, which, and then it stayed that way the whole rest of the time. It really made sense. The brothers Sheridan on each side, Joey, the lead guy in the middle, and Randy, and later on Wolfe in the drum position. Just that standard Van Halen, Who, Zeppelin crew was even doing it, the 3+1 three-piece band with just a singer, didn't play guitar or anything. But just that was that 80s thing, you get the hot rod guitar player and jumping around with the long hair and kind of a frontman type singer. Yeah, but we were all frontman. That was definitely the intention. Was
the other guy same thing? Was he kind of frontman looking as well, the other guitar player? What was his name again?
Michael Scott at first. And then Lance Ross came a little bit later. Yeah, Michael Scott, he was great. He was all about it. I don't know what happened. I mean, I think he had been on the road for a long time. I think he just needed a break. He's still good friends. I talk to him all the time. He definitely, actually, we learned a lot from him because he was pretty polished with the hairspray and the makeup and stuff like that. We were a little gritty jeans with a machine gun belt and leather jacket, and we got a little more glammed up with Michael. But Lance was good and I think he felt a lot of competition, and it wasn't really that within the band. We weren't into all that, so it was kind of unnecessary to feel competitive. But it was also it's a rough thing when you're out on the road and stuff. I mean, it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Did anything happen on that trip, or was it just from kind of lugging around and the hard living from the road, or what?
Yeah, I think it was just a combination. Seeing weird stuff, sleeping in the van, and gigs falling through, and then you have to do something else. And I didn't care because I got to play rock and roll. And I'm underage, and I'm getting paid to drink and do coke and play lead guitar. I didn't have a problem with it, with having some inconveniences, that went along with. Of course, now I would like a little more accommodations. But at the time, I was just, I just wanted to see the world and tour and do my thing.
Anything stand out from that first road trip?
The first one to Texas, or to LA.
Yeah.
That was, a couple funny things. We actually did really well. We had somebody that knew somebody that passed something along, and there was this woman, Lucy Forbes, in LA. And immediately she took us to the Rainbow, and we went to the back corner seat where Zeppelin, and then later on Guns N' Roses, sort of commandeered in the Rainbow. And then one night, because we were in LA maybe for a couple of weeks, she took us in through the side door to go into the Roxy, because they're right next to each other on the Strip. And there was this band Poison playing, and as soon as we got to LA, and we're, just right in the middle of it, there was a bright green Poison logo stencil spray painted on every construction thing, every electrical box, every telephone pole. And Joe even said, he goes, they painted the town Poison. And it's like, you just see this green Poison logo, the same logo. And it was all over town. It was like, man, so we heard of them. We heard they were pretty good. They're from back east. And it was before they had CC. It was a different guitar player. So this would have been 85. And and Lucy took us we're in the cool table at the Rainbow, and we get ushered in to the side door at the Roxy, and Poison comes on, and the place is packed, and you just knew they were going to be rock stars. And even before CC, they had something that was just, we were pretty much blown away. So that was kind of the competition level. It was at least a year and a half before they got signed. But we knew that, wow, we got to come back here and really up our game in the meantime. And so we, it was game on. The other thing that happened was we played the Troubadour, and that was the last gig before we left. And by then there was just, even in a couple of weeks, there was a little more buzz. And the place was packed. It's like, wow, Troubadour, and it's, it's wall to wall. And Carmine Appice was there. And drummer guy, we were like, okay, wow, that's cool. And didn't get to meet him or anything, but somebody told us, and okay, big deal. And then about, I don't know what it was, like 8 months later, there was this band called King Kobra that comes out. Randy at the time hadn't dyed his hair blonde yet. He was still a brunette, and he had a couple blonde streaks. But it was a brunette drummer and then 4 blonde guys, because we still had Lance on that first trip, in the pink and blue. And it was some guys from Arizona, I think, from Icon or the Schoolboys, or one of those bands. And it was King Kobra, and it was like, when we just saw the whole thing, it's like, oh my God, that fucker saw us at the Troubadour, and 6 months later he's got his record's coming out. So he didn't steal any songs or anything, and he can't copyright a band idea, but it was definitely lifted.
So from there, you guys get back. I guess it's kind of a cool thing, too, getting back after the road trip, and kind of you have a new perspective on how you're going to go about it, right?
Yeah, and we doubled down. Now I'm the lead guitar player, only guitar player, so we tweaked some of the songs, changed a little bit of the set list, started writing.
So Lance quit immediately? I mean, as soon as you get back, he's gone?
Yeah, more or less. So there was enough time to prepare for the next trip, because we went back there in, I think, June of '85. Just about 3 months later, after that first trip, we went back out to LA because we got like, we got to come back here and and do this. So we had a lot to prepare for that. And we just played all the time, Savvy's or Matley's or where we could around Dallas and Texas generally, and just getting ready, getting our look together, getting the hair together. Randy finally dyed his hair blonde, so now it's 4 blonde guys. And we did the same thing. We went to Phoenix, and we played at a place called Rockers. We stayed in Phoenix for 3 weeks, 2 weeks to play, 2 weeks back-to-back playing at Rockers for, 4 or 5 nights. And then 1 week to just rehearse the, because when you're on the road, you're doing a couple 1-hour sets each night. When you're playing in LA and there's 5 bands at Gazzara's, you play 40 minutes or 35 minutes, and that's it. They'll cut you off. So you got to have a really tight show. You're going to have to kill time. You don't have to draw anything out. You got to hammer it. So we played for 2 weeks at Rockers, and I turned 21. It had to be in June, so I turned 21 during that gig. Rob Halford sat in with us because he had been living there now.
Wow.
And he was managing a band called Surgical Steel.
Sure.
I think it's some of those guys that go back, Icon Schoolboys era. And, a couple of them remain friends. And there's some funny stories with Halford. Finally, he's like, we get him to sit in. He's like, okay, I'll sit in. But then for whatever reason, the monitors had sucked all week. I mean, just like Joey couldn't hear anything. Laine or I didn't do much backup, and Laine did a lot of backup vocals, and he couldn't hear either. And Joey's getting pissed, the sound man and everything. Finally, Halford comes in up to sit in, and we do Breaking the Law. And as soon as he started singing, the monitors just like ripped your head off. It was all him. It had nothing to do with the monitors. It cut through the worst monitors in the world, and it was just piercing 100% on this guy. And he's just like rubbing up against me, that I was completely wasted. And I'm just like, holy shit, and damn, with Rob Halford, playing Breaking the Law like he used to play in high school. And it was awesome. But yeah, no, it was, talk about pipes. I mean, it's the real thing. He made horrible monitors sound like, mega system. So that was fun. And then there was this other, where we were staying, they were friends with this band called Tuff. And they were like, I think they were still in high school or something. And it's Chaisson from, I think, Kiel. It was his little brother playing bass.
Right.
And this guy, George, on guitar. And they were this little 5-piece band. And they did like Iron Maiden and all this stuff. So we had them open up for us at this club called Rockers. And of course, fast forward about 2 years later, they're a 4-piece and Steve Rochelle's in the band, but it's still Chaisson and George on bass and guitar. These kids that we knew, and then they're in LA doing the thing too. So we had I think that was their first gig ever, was opening up for us at Rockers in Phoenix. But that's where they were originally from the Tuff band. But yeah, we got the band honed and we were ready to go. And next stop, LA. And
is Jim Gillette singing with them at that point? Or is that like a later thing?
Yeah, I think that was a later thing. I think Todd and George were the only...
I gotcha. You have any Icon memories at all?
No, just tales from girls that, from the local Phoenix scene, learning about the local Phoenix scene, but that was at it. But I don't think they were playing. I think it was mostly Surgical Steel, and of course, then 6 months later it was it was King Kobra. But yeah, no. But I just definitely heard of them. Some of the guys I think crossed over to Surgical Steel from either Schoolboys or Icon. And they put out a record. Wasn't it was it Kasanovich or one of those guys? I don't know. I kind of
that what.
That was in one of those earlier bands that later on was in Surgical Steel.
The guy from
Jim Keeler.
The guy from Racer X, I think, was in. Wasn't he singing for Surgical Steel?
Yeah, that's right, man. Okay.
And then Greg was in the band as well for a while. Chaisson, yeah, he was in the band.
Okay.
And then got fired. So he had some of the story and that connection to Rob Halford as well. But yeah, Surgical Steel's hilarious because they, as a kid, I'd of course see their like ad in Hit Parader for years in the back of the magazine and never knew who the hell they were really. And it wasn't even till later where I started getting into interviewing people where I'm like, oh yeah, what the hell was up with that band? And then I interviewed like Rick Fox, and Rick was like, oh, I was in that band for a while. It was like all these people were in the band. The band lasted forever, but never could, even with the help of Rob Halford, still couldn't, I guess, ever get a deal.
No, they never got it off the ground. I was surprised to learn that they weren't going to LA all the time to play. It's like a 6-hour drive.